We have the opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people. From Indianapolis, Indiana, I'm with Gary Jackson. And Gary, over a lifetime, you have collected a lot of memorabilia. You're also a race car driver yourself. I know you were born in Marion, Indiana, grew up in Huntington, ended up in Chicago. You've had a phenomenal life. How did the passion for racing begin?
Well, when I was 15, my uncle took me to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. As a Christmas present, he gave me a general admission ticket, and I actually sat on a turn 4 and watched the cars run. Then when the race was over, I accidentally ran into Victory Lane at the south end of the grandstands when Roger Ward won, and I was just hooked after that. And I wanted to be a race car driver. I never cared about anything but that.
You had a tough beginning as a child, but you overcame all that, and just through working really hard, you found a way to race.
Well, it took a long time because, unfortunately, I picked the most expensive sport there is, and I had to go get the money. So, and I'm dyslexic, which they did not know that when I went to school, and I ended up not doing very well in school, and then, of course, sitting in the back of the room, but finally got things turned. Went to Chicago and got things turned around. Lived in a garage for a year, and was fortunate enough to end up with my own company, and then moved on to other things.
Just plain hard work. How old were you when you really were able to start racing?
39 years old.
Which is a little older than some guys get in it.
Yeah, some guys they're fortunate enough that their parents can start them at 5 or 6 years old, but I didn't have the money. And my parents were blue-collar workers, hard workers, and you didn't ask for things like that because they didn't have it. You know, it wasn't there.
Gary, in your racing career, you had some success. You were really looking forward to possibly the Indianapolis 500. You got close.
That was my motivation for my whole life, and then I got sick. I had some health problems, and I had to stop, and then I caused myself some problems, and I just didn't make it. A lot of guys I raced with made it. When the IRL came along, it opened it up to a lot of drivers. CART was and the Indy Racing League were separate, and the Indy Racing League came along, and they brought in what they call second-tier drivers. But a lot of drivers I was fortunate enough to finish in front of back in the amateur league racing. So, you know, I got close.
One particular race, the best one you ever had. Tell us about that.
It's the first one I won at Sebring. It wasn't just winning my first race. That's special in itself. But winning it at 41 years old, the first thing. The second thing was to win at such an iconic racetrack as Sebring. And then to win, I mean, I couldn't believe I won. I mean, it's unbelievable that I was given the privilege to drive and to win. And you know, although I worked very hard, I'm very humble about it. I went to a hotel that night and sat on the balcony all night long and cried.
In your life, Gary, just a lot of tenacity and hard work, but it also spills over in the racing world. This particular car that we're standing in front of, very special to you.
Yeah, it is. This is the car I won the second championship with, driving for Continental Crosley out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And this car came out, they shipped 30 of these worldwide, and we were fortunate enough to win the first race ever for this model car. And not only that, I was fortunate enough to win in every model that Crosley ever had. So they had 3 different versions. Fortunately, we got wins in both of them.
You got to know a lot of people, and when you're out collecting memorabilia, what's your secret for finding that special piece?
I don't know. You just see it when you know it when you walk up to it. An odd piece that nobody else has. There's some pieces on the wall up here. I got the front end off of A.J. Foyt's 962 Porsche. And it was wrecked. A lot of pieces are wrecked, and I cut the wrecked portion off of them, and then I save it. To me, it's art.
So what some people might think is just pure junk or trash, you think is Art Deco.
I do. And I like it, and I enjoy it. And I collected way too much of it. I got carried away, but I can't walk away from something when I see it. I want it, and I buy it, and here we are.
Most of this work has signatures.
It does. It does. All the IndyCar stuff is autographed. The NASCAR stuff, probably 80% of it's autographed. There's some Formula One autographs, some drag racing autographs. There's a lot of stuff here.
Any special story in getting a signature for one of the cars?
Well, A.J. Foyt's always hard to get one off of. If he's in a good mood, you're all right, and if he's not, you walk away with your head in your hand. But A.J.'s always been my hero. I mean, he was a pretty tenacious guy, and he just didn't think that he took no for an answer, and I took no for an answer. And so, that's who I patterned myself after.
Over the years, Gary, when you started collecting memorabilia, did you ever think it would end up like this?
No, I think I got carried away. There was no die-cast cars. So I started out with Ron Burton's art, and I filled up I had a whole art collection at one time. But when they come out with the cars, when a driver signs a car, they'll hold the car and they'll sign it. And that really, to me, they kind of give life to that little car once they put their autograph on it. So, and a quick story about AJ, one day he signed a car for me, and his hands were dirty, and his fingerprints got on the car, and he said, "Oh, here, we'll wipe that off." And I said, "No." And I took it and had it lacquered over. So it has A.J. Foyt's fingerprints on it.
Besides the many cars, you have quite a collection of uniforms.
We do. I bought a car off of Dale Earnhardt Sr., and after I bought the car, he went back inside and got me a uniform and gave it to me. So that's one thing. And there's other uniforms over here. Buddy Baker's winning uniform from the Daytona 500. Tiny Lund's uniform. One of Richard Petty's last uniforms are up there. Dale Jr.'s uniform's up there. Neil Bonnet.
I think you said when you were talking to Dale Sr., Dale Jr. said, "Hey, you got to take one of mine too."
Yeah, he did. He said, "You got one of my dad's uniforms. You can't have it without having one of mine." And so I ended up with one of his as well.
I have a particular interest in neon, and wow, do you have a neon collection?
Well, a lot of it came out from the beer companies and the cigarette companies. And so I went around and got it. I wanted the neon. And I love neon. I come from an era of neon, Art Deco era, and I went around and got it. So we got a lot of it on the wall over here. And I've got more. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 100th anniversary came out with some special neon. I've got it in the other room.
Many of the pieces you have here on the ceiling and on the walls, people were throwing away, yet you knew it had value.
Well, like I said before, I looked at it as art. Some people looked at it as trash. If you look on the ceiling over here, that's off of Lynn St. James' car, and then that's Scott Brayton's car, the late Scott Brayton, that Amway wing, and that's Gordon Johncock up there. And there's pieces off of Foyt's car, and that one wing down there is off a winning car. When I did the artwork, got them signed, I stood outside of garages in hot sun for an hour or 2 hours waiting on a particular driver. And it was a lot of work, and that's the truth. Now I get them pretty easy, but now I'm a lot smarter than I was. I get them at 6 o'clock when they're done for the day.
All of the signatures you have mean a lot to you, but this one's very special.
Yeah, it's Roger Ward, the first race I ever went to in 1962. And later they came out with these die-cast cars. So I know Roger Ward Jr. is a very good friend of mine. And I was at the Speedway one day and I said, "Do you think I could get your dad to sign my cars tomorrow?" And he said, "Sure, be here at 12 noon. I was at the front door of the motel, and here he drove up on a golf cart. And he signed everything I had.
An incredible life you've had, Gary. And you have this passion for racing, but you have another passion, and it's model trains. How did that interest start?
Well, I don't know. When I was a kid, I always wanted, you dream about having stuff, and my parents didn't have the money. And I used to go to bed at night, and I pretended I was the king, I was the Prince of Wales. And I knew he had everything, but the way I dreamed it, he had everything I wanted, a quarter midget, a big electric train layout, all the toys. And so when I made some money, I started buying stuff, and I I put together an electric train set. Actually, I never put it together. There's other people, a lot of other people that put the layout together.
Can we go take a look?
Absolutely. My pleasure.